This is extraordinarily complex, that we can't just build a jail, that we've got to deal with the processes that surround criminal justice. And in fact, we won't really even know what kind of building we need until we design the processes and see what the outcomes are, just like you do in your business every day. So in partnership with the county, we've created a new task force that included all the expertise from the others and is comprehensive in its makeup to deal with this issue and look at the reforms, the physical facilities, what other communities across the nation are doing, some of which have had big successes affecting jail populations. We think we can learn from what they've done. Obviously, we've got to look at our own metrics and their solutions and apply them in a tailored way to our own situation and come up with solutions that we think will address our problem. Obviously, we don't want to be the last metropolitan area in the United States to build a 20th century jail. We want to build a 21st century criminal justice system that absolutely and very clearly removes dangerous criminals from the street, but also, in all likelihood, will focus on rehabilitation, diversion, where appropriate. We want to increase public safety, but we want it to be cost effective. We want it to be efficient to operate, and we want it to contribute to our healthy community. In all, I think it's a perfect topic for a chamber forum. We're going to deal with all these topics today. We've got expertise that will be in front of us, and you'll know more about diversion and rehabilitation and criminal justice than when you walked in the door, I assure you. But first, let's eat lunch. We'll be back up here soon. All right, please keep enjoying your meal. We are really fortunate to have one of our community's most dependable, collaborative leaders spearhead this task force for us. We all know Clay Bennett and what he means to our community. Amongst the many things he does, he's also president of Dorchester Capital and a past chair of the chamber. So if you would, please welcome one of our most iconic leaders, Clay Bennett.
Thank you very much. So I'll start by saying the name of the task force. May I call on the creative marketing talent in this room to help us get a better name. Acronym, 2 or 3 words that get the right idea. We're working on that and welcome all input. I truly want to thank each and every one of you for being here. As I look around, everyone here has a stake in this and has an interest in this and is truly responsible for a piece of this. So if we could keep this together, if we could keep this group thinking and engaged, man, what a great start. So I really am grateful for your being here. Also, I want to manage expectation from the beginning. You will observe I will quickly be out of my lane. I know a bit about this topic. I've learned a lot in the past months, and many in this room have counseled me, and we've had great discussions. But I have no expertise in this space. I do, however, and I am moved to work on this, and I am moved to contribute time and effort, and to the extent I can be helpful or effective in my role, I certainly want to do that. But I will be relying on many other incredible people to help us through this. So let's kind of get at it. I'm gonna make a few remarks, just opening thoughts and where I think we are and where I think I am, and then we'll get into what I know will be a terrific conversation with our panel. As David said, the tipping point really is the county jail. It's been a 20-year problem. We have kicked the can down the road consistently. I've been a part of that. Maps for kids, maps, Big League City. There's been other things that I think many of us felt were more important, that we had to get done, that we had to do certain things to change things. And the county jail and the issues of the county jail suffered as we deferred addressing the issues of the jail. We also now know about the standing with the Department of Justice. So we're at a pinch point, and it's time to face this problem with the jail. But the really cool thing about what's happened and how time works through things is that I think we all think differently now. There's been a cultural change in how we think about the criminal justice system. It's not just about locking people up and throwing away the key. It's not just about tough on crime. It's about how do we really deal holistically with the system, the criminal justice system. What we know is that what we have today is unsustainable. We're in a crisis position with this. And by the way, as we'll learn, so are many, many cities across this country dealing with this very same issue. The issue of the soaring incarceration. The majority of people in this jail should not be there. And we must find ways to address the system. The primary driver of this, and I think another cultural phenomenon that will really contribute to interest and engagement with people across the community, is the driver is, in large measure, people dealing with addiction issues and people dealing with mental health issues. And they're in the worst place they could be. Their lives crashing, their families crashing, and a really tough way out and a tough way forward. We need to find better answers to this and better outcomes, and I think we're in a point in time in this community and in this country where we can do it. It's when 1 in 3 in this state is affected by mental health issues or addiction issues, it clearly touches us all. It touches us all, no matter the demographic, no matter race, gender, income, geography. It touches us all, and we understand it more. It's no longer something we don't talk about. It's something, in fact, we do talk about. And so many in this room have contributed to that platform, but I want to specifically recognize the Oklahoman who, through Kelly's leadership, these ongoing, lengthy, thoughtful, really well-done pieces on these issues has just really helped educate all of us and understand that this is a problem we all must face. So all of this was happening, and the jail issue was coming up, and it just struck me that it was time. And it struck me around the time of the bombing, too, the anniversary, when we talked again about kind of renewing our commitment to the Oklahoma standard. Well, this is right down the fairway. It's right down the fairway. It's taking care of us. It's Oklahoma, where we respect each other, we care about each other, we take care of each other, and we love each other. And that's how we've done so well. Just simple as that. And so the time I felt, for me personally, I just became attracted to this and connected to it, and felt that if I could be helpful, I wanted to engage. I also thought about what we've done as a community. I mean, it's truly probably unparalleled in terms of the transformation that we've seen in this community. If someone left 20 years ago and came back today, they would not know this city. And not only in the depth and the context and how well we've done, but in the time. I mean, 20 years is not a very long time to do these things. We've diversified our economy, we've strengthened our economy, We have a quality of life that I would submit is second to none. We have global and national caliber assets and amenities and talent, yet we get to live in a small town where we know each other and get to drive around and do things, and it's easy. We've invested in our young people, and our young people are now staying. They want to be here, they want to raise their families here, build their careers here, and people who have left want to come back, and that's extraordinary. There were days I know none of us would have believed that would be possible. So we've done these great things, we're in a good position, we're on our feet, but we have family that is hurting. We have people that are hurting, and we have a jail issue that must be addressed. So let's go to work. I'm really proud of the Chamber and the Board of Directors of the Chamber for embracing this and taking this on. This could be viewed by some as not really a traditional business issue. I would suggest it's front and center as a business issue. We've got to take care of these matters to have the best platform and the best city we could possibly have. We've got a tremendous history at the Chamber of working in a collaborative fashion with stakeholders and moving things forward, and I'm pleased that the Chamber's ready to take this on. Also, I think it's a great opportunity to engage with kind of the non-traditional piece of the business piece. In that, I mean, we have so many extraordinary nonprofits who, some are small, some are larger, but they all are taking on a piece of this. And they're all really outstanding, and they have great professional staff. They have boards made up of all of you. They're funded in large measure by the corporate community. And that's the team. That's more, we're going to bring everybody together and take on all of these various pieces. And I'm excited by that. So today we're going to introduce a process and begin a process, and it will be a process. We're also today, I think for the first time, excuse me, as it relates to the jail, formally engaging with the community. We're teeing this up, we're bringing you in, we're going to engage in lots of communication, lots of discussion, and we're going to keep it moving and keep it dynamic. So it's all about people, and the starting point we thought was, let's get the right group of people together at the beginning who have expertise, who have interest, and want to work on this project. And we brought together a very interesting and exciting task force. And if you'd start, this is 2 pages of names because we wanted to list everyone's title clearly. But we have this incredible group of people that are formally engaged in this in their career, people that touch it in other ways. We have business leadership, and we have people that I can tell you, we've had numerous meetings. You can only imagine the difficulty of getting this group together, and almost have had 100% participation in our meetings. And so the commitment has been terrific. It's been a principled platform. It's been good principled discussion and open and honest discussion, and everyone dealing with each other in a really terrific way. So the people that are on the task force that are here, if you would please stand and be recognized, I would appreciate that. Great. And there's a lot of personality in that room, and a lot of different views, and a lot of history, a little bit of politics, and but I can say that it's just been extraordinary to look around the room and enjoy this conversation and see how people are dealing with each other, trying to find an answer. So there has been lots of work done on the jail, as David said. There's been any number of studies on a new jail. There's been a recent committee that Roy Williams participated in to find answers for the new jail, and never can quite get there. Never can quite get there. there's not interest in just building a new jail. There's not interest in just building a new jail. But there is interest, I believe, in a holistic view and a holistic approach in dealing with our system and ultimately our jail facility. So out of kind of nowhere, we heard from our great friend, President Robert Henry, who has been very interested in these issues. And he suggested that we contact an organization by the name of VERA, V-E-R-A, VERA Institute of Justice. And I'd encourage you to check out their website, vera.org. It's really good, it's very comprehensive, lots of information, and talks about very specifically kind of exactly what it is we are hoping to do. Let me read you just their very brief mission statement. VERA combines expertise in research, demonstration projects, and technical assistance to help leaders in government and civil society improve the systems people rely on for justice and safety. VERA is an independent, nonpartisan, nonprofit organization. VERA's Center on Sentencing and Corrections, which is the unit that we're dealing with, partners with states, localities, and systems to advance adult criminal justice policies that promote fairness, protect public safety, and ensure that resources are used efficiently. It's like exactly what we want and what we need. So we engaged VERA. The project manager, that's the precise title, but is a woman by the name of Nancy Fishman. Her information is on the website. She's a very accomplished person, very experienced in this area. And we began having conversations with her. On the week of November 16th, VERA came down to do kind of phase one. And phase one is what they called a diagnostic site visit and a big process to establish data capture. So they, again, relating to the committee, they had meetings with virtually every person on that board and others. Every single meeting was taken. Every single person, every single entity took the meeting and had constructive, good meetings with these people. Nancy told us that in most all of their engagements, that can be the toughest step, is getting a committee together, is getting engagement, getting these meetings scheduled, that it's just so hard to get this kind of firmed up and moved up. And so she was very encouraged by that and very impressed by that. Okay, so let's move into talking a little more about some of these details. Let's look at some information that VERA has submitted to us. Some of this information, many of you will really know, and some may not have any ideas. I did not. So this shows that, these are simple slides, but it's just pointing to the challenge of incarceration rates. So here is Oklahoma County, and the blue line is the balance of Oklahoma, and then the U.S. Incarceration rate. So you can see just very quickly, we're boom, way, way high. Okay? This is just quickly to show Lawton, Tulsa, and Oklahoma County. Again, very clearly way out of the bandwidth. We spoke about the national challenge as it relates to system, policy, process, tough on crime, et cetera. 12 million people in this country are in jails. You know, that's 12 million people. How many kids is that? How many families is that? How many, how does that affect an economy? That's a massive, very troubling number. This is kind of where it gets into the meat of things, and this panel can really dial in on it, but the majority of people that are in jail are there pre-trial. They're not convicted. And to further exacerbate, because of new great ideas, they're there even longer than they had been in previous times. So you can see the issue. This one is really good. So crime is quite frankly well down. even violent crime on the bottom line. Those are the bad guys who we want to throw away the key. It's down. But look at incarceration. Another is clear system issues that need to be addressed. This is arrest, so someone gets arrested. You can see now the trend of actually going to jail as opposed to perhaps some other adjudication or release or something, which our panel can talk more about. But again, new policies, new rules, new laws that are creating this phenomenon. This is an example of cities that are actively engaged in this very process. Vera is working with, I think, 6 of these cities, including New York and LA, and most recently and most importantly, I think for us, in Albuquerque, is New Orleans and Albuquerque, both cities who have done dramatic work in a very short period of time to really affect this issue. So this is happening in the country, and we're in step, and let's stay in step and let's get ahead. Okay, so let's introduce our panel. I'm not going to do any lengthy introductions because everyone in here is friends and well known to each other. David Prater, our district attorney, please come on up. Kris Steele. Kris, former speaker and now heading up TEEM and doing a great job. Sheriff Whetsel. And Terri White. Very good. I'll slip you the notes. All right, please sit. Okay, so I'm really happy now to hand off to people who know what they're doing. All of these people are so highly accomplished. They're known to all of you, and there's information in your booklet. But I'm really thrilled because each one of these people was there day one, has been at every meeting, has been completely engaged, and no question we have the talent with this group and others to pull this off. So I'm going to ask a few questions, and we'll pass it around a little bit and keep it moving. We want to try to stop it at 1, so I think we'll be in good shape. So, kind of referring a little bit to what we think is a really central issue of incarceration rates. So, Sheriff, let me start with you. We've seen the population of pretrial. We've seen the numbers we just described. Can you just generally talk about your view of why this phenomenon is taking place?
Well, I think we have to look, first of all, let me give you some numbers. In Oklahoma County, about 82% of our population in the jail is pretrial. So the vast majority, whereas nationally it's about 62%. The other thing I think has to do with when people are booked in, they are staying a longer period of time, and I think a lot of that has to do with some decisions that were made 20 or 25 years ago by the courts, and that had to do with posting bail. And if they posted bail, they no longer qualified, regardless of what their income status was, they no longer qualified for a public defender. So we have a lot of people in our jail who could post bond, whose families could post bond, but they refuse to because if they post bond, even though they may not have money for a lawyer, the court will not allow them to have a public defender. And I think that from the very start is something that keeps a lot more offenders in jail than not. 76% last year of the people who were booked into the county jail came in with bonds of less than $5,000. Now, when I say $5,000, that means if they go to a bail bondsman, they would pay roughly $500 cash and then post a surety bond, maybe their house or some other surety. But for $500 cash, even someone at $5,000 bail could get out. So think about all of the ones that we have, and our highest number of inmates that we have, 76%, were less than $5,000 bond. But they are in jail and they remain in jail for a longer period of time because, I think, because of that court action.
David, can you talk about some other system issues on your side that account for people staying in jail?
Sure. And I agree with everything Sheriff Whetsel just said. If you look at who we incarcerate right now in the Oklahoma County Jail, there are really two populations that I focus on. Those are the very violent, who we have asked for bond increases on or denied bond on, or poor people. And as immoral as it sounds, I've just got to tell you, because it's the truth, if you look at the majority of the people in the Oklahoma County Jail who aren't posting bond, it's poor people. And like Sheriff Whetsel said, a lot of people who might be able to post a bond are not right now, because when they get out, there is not a finding, an attempt to determine if they are, if they qualify for a public defender, whether they posted bond or not. Again, those are decisions that weren't made by any of us on this panel, but something that we've asked the judges to do is to reconsider that decision that they've made years and years ago in determining indigency for a person, whether or not they have posted bond or not. Also, we need to look at the bond schedule. It's frankly quite arbitrary. If you get booked in on this offense, this is what your bond's going to be. There's no real risk assessment that's done at that point. You know, if you're rich enough to get out, you're going to post bond and get out. If you're poor, you're not going to get out. So we are also asking the court to revisit the bond schedule as well, and also we're looking with the assistance of Sheriff Whetsel and Commissioner White at putting a risk assessment tool in the jail to determine dangerousness. And before we would set a bond for a person, we'll determine the risk for reoffending and what their risk to the community is as well. Because frankly, what we don't want to release someone who's a public safety risk, right? What we need to look at is who are the public safety risks, who are those that we're concerned about returning to court. That's really all we need to be looking at when we're talking about bond. I'll tell you this as well, there are many bondsmen in the room. They have an important part in this process, because a lot of bondsmen will go ahead and post bond, and they are able to supervise and make sure that these offenders stay on track, get drug tests, and appear in court as well. So for you bondsmen out there, this is not an attack on your industry. But we do need to look at the level of bonds that are on the jail bail as well. And also, I believe we need to have a judge that's in the court, in the jail and available to set bonds within a reasonable period of time after them being booked.
So that ruling that you both are referencing, where is that, and how do we address that change?
Sure. Well, we have a board, Oklahoma County Board, that deals with conditional bonds, OR, and things like that. And we have monthly meetings, and that is an ongoing process. And again, there's a dialogue with the bondsman. There's dialogue. The county commissioners are involved, and their designees. So it is an ongoing process. But that's something that has not been started until really recently. I'd say within the last 6 months.
Kris, you have a unique perspective, for sure, being involved at the legislature at the level you were and being so focused on this. What are some other laws, legal issues, things you're working on that can bring about change in this area?
Yes, sir. Thank you for the question, and thank you for this opportunity. I am maybe the happiest person in the state of Oklahoma that we're having this discussion. And I'm also very confident that given the leadership and the intellect in this room, there's no reason why we can't solve this problem. I would tell you this, that I think an obvious reform, and it's been mentioned, but I'm going to talk at the state level for just a second. And I'm sure everyone in this room already is very familiar with these statistics, but Oklahoma leads the nation in female incarceration. If you take the federal offenders out of the equation, the offenders that reside in federal institutions within our state, Oklahoma has the second highest incarceration rate of any state in the nation. We are spending a lot of money to basically warehouse individuals. And when you break down who it is that's being incarcerated, particularly with our female population, it's the vast majority are low-level offenders. And so I think that at least has to be a part of the discussion. We need to consider reclassifying some of our current offenses that are punishable by felony convictions and incarceration, perhaps to misdemeanors, punishable by treatment, particularly if the offense involves some substance abuse or some sort of mental illness. We've got to be able to address those root causes of criminogenic behavior in order to get our arms around this issue. And so I think it starts with some sentencing reform in relation to low-level offenses. And then I think there's also some practical matters that we can address at the local level the state legislature could help us with. And that would be to perhaps allow more what is called police discretion when it comes to responding to low-level offenses. Maybe it's not that we have to apprehend and take them in and book them into the county jail, but maybe we could confront the situation, issue a citation, and help that person remain in the community. And then I just want to underscore what Sheriff Whetsel and DA Prater mentioned. Right now, I believe that we have inadvertently, and I'm going to believe unintentionally, created a debtor's prison in relation to how we are currently administering bonds. And I think by anybody's estimation, debtor's prison is immoral and unconstitutional. And so what we need to consider is effective use of risk assessments, because I think that we have supervision in the community. We have day reporting. We have diversion programs that can apply proper supervision to those individuals who are not a risk to public safety or a threat to society. And we can allow those people to remain in the community, work, and pay some sort of restitution, as opposed to just sitting in jail costing precious resources that we don't have.
Great. Terri, talk about the role of mental health services and addiction recovery services in this context.
So the question that you asked is why people are staying in the jail. And one of the things that I'm excited about your leadership, Clay, David's leadership, and Roy's on this issue is that the other part of the question that this group is wrestling with is, how are these people getting to jail in the first place? Because when we're talking about the group of nonviolent offenders, we all agree that there is a group of people out there who are dangerous and scary to our families. And we're not talking about that group, but the group of nonviolent offenders, the reason that they're getting there is because they're ill. And for most people when they're ill, whether it's heart disease, whether it's cancer, whether it's any other form of disease, we get them to a medical facility and get them the help they need. Otherwise, they would get sicker and sicker and potentially lose their job, not be able to pay their mortgage, maybe lose their home, maybe become homeless. But very rarely do we see people who become homeless because of untreated heart disease or lose their job because we didn't help them get cancer treatment. But we have a significant number of individuals in Oklahoma, 1 out of every 4 of us, 1 out of every 4 of us, because mental illness and addiction looks like me, looks like you, looks like your kids, looks like your family, looks like your coworkers, looks like your employees, who don't get help for their disease. And when that happens over and over, and law enforcement is desperate trying to find somewhere to get them services, and every bed in our state is full, and every counselor is booked for the next 4 weeks, or 6 weeks, or 8 weeks, or 6 months, sometimes they end up going to jail because people don't know where else they'll be safe. They're not there for a violent offense, they just don't know what else to do. And so one of the things that I think is exciting about this task force is that we're going to talk about the fact that we have high rates of mental illness and addiction in Oklahoma, unfortunately. We have high rates of all diseases. One of the things we're not #1 yet in is good health. We have high rates of all diseases, and we have really high rates of mental illness and addiction. We're also second in the nation for the number of people struggling with mental illness and addiction. Probably not a coincidence that we're second in incarceration, because no state has gotten a hold of and taken care of persons with mental illness and addiction and got them the help they need. If we were to do that, we would stop the flow coming in that would help tremendously, in addition to the other really important things we have to do for the people who get there.
Thank you. Let's dig in a little bit on diversion. That's a popular notion that some of us know a little bit about, but the programs I've been exposed to seem to be extraordinary. David, can you talk about alternative courts?
Sure, I'll do that, but also I'll talk about post-disposition diversion programs that keep people from going to prison, but even before disposition, we have the day reporting system, and through the Department of Mental Health and Substance Abuse, and probably many in this room, offenders who are appropriate are released from the jail who have demonstrable mental illness, and they are reporting daily to the North Care facility, and that keeps them out of jail. It gets them services earlier on, and also helps us make a determination as to how best to appropriately deal with their criminal behavior. So we've got that predisposition. As we're working toward disposition of a case, we have probably 8 to 10 diversion programs in Oklahoma County. The ones you always hear about: drug court, mental health court. We created a veterans diversion program. We have a specific women's diversion program that's run through the Department of Corrections. We have the remerge program that a number of you here are partners in. But we try to find programs that are specifically designed for a certain demographic. Remerge program, women who have multiple felony convictions, they are absolutely going to prison, no doubt in anyone's mind that's where they're going, and they have babies. They've got children. And believe me, if you don't think that the criminal offenders deserve a break, focus on the children. Because what we see is every one of these these women who are criminal defendants in these cases, they have 2, 3, 4, 5 children. Every time we have a graduation of our remerge program, which is a very intensive treatment program, mental health, substance abuse, sober living, services that are provided to them, but when we have 4 or 5 women who are graduating this program, we have 18 to 20 children to 24 children who are affected positively by this program. So all of our diversion programs, no matter what it is, they are specifically tailored to a certain demographic with a certain need. And so, all right, let me get rid of this myth. DAs hate to put people in prison. Okay? That's just the truth. DAs do not like to put people in prison. It breaks my heart every time I see a young black male, a young black female, a white male, a white female, old or young, going to prison, because I know we failed them. When we're talking about a jail, let's talk about a jail in the same way we talk about the church. The church is not a building, it's the people, right? When you talk about the jail, I want you to think about 25, 26, 2,700 of your fellow citizens who didn't have the break you had when you were born. They weren't born in your zip code to your parents with the opportunities that you had. So let's look at it that way. So everyone that likes to beat their chest and talk about being tough on crime, you're being tough on people that hadn't had a chance in life, who have made the same mistakes that I made. I didn't get caught, and they did. And every one of you can say the same thing, I'll bet. So let's talk about being more compassionate and less hard-ass in this situation. Sorry.
I was ready for that.
But diversion programs are fantastic, and I am hopeful that the legislature will continue to support them even in times of a budget crisis. This is a perfect opportunity for us to determine what is it that we really care about in this state? What are our priorities? Ask your legislature to make clear what their priorities are to you. They ought to be our children, our families, our citizens. Everything else pales in comparison to taking care of our children. All right? You want to talk about stopping the flow of people to the Oklahoma County Jail, because no matter how large of a jail we build or how large of a prison we're going to build, we will fill it, period. But what we're trying to do here with your leadership, Clay and David and a lot of other wonderful people in this community, is try to put the services in place in these communities to stop the flow. How do we do that? You take care of our babies. You take care of your children at home. You take care of the neighbor's children out in the neighborhood. You take care of the school kids that are going to school with your children. If we take care of the children, we start to stop the flow of this insane incarceration rate.
All right, let's move. Terri, talk about what is what we have today in terms of programs related to addiction, mental health services.
Right. So one of the things that we're very fortunate about, actually many things. One is that we have amazing people who are working on this issue, including a district attorney who does get it. And I will say, because I'm going to brag on him a little bit, not every DA in Oklahoma does get it, because I get to deal with all of them. And I will tell you that is not exactly the case, but David does, and he helps set the stage and the leadership for all the rest. But what we have the problem with in Oklahoma is that we have amazing diversion programs in Oklahoma County, but many of them are full because we don't have enough resources for the demand. We have the second highest rate of mental illness in the United States. We have the 46th lowest per capita funding. We are the 46th lowest in terms of funding. The gap is huge between how many people need help and how many people can get help. And so it forces David and his staff, and it forces our public defender, and it forces our sheriff and our police to try to figure out, okay, who gets the chance in these programs? Because we haven't appropriately funded them. Now here's the kicker on this, because some of you might think, well then why don't we move all the mental health and substance use money into those diversion programs? Well then guess what that says? Go commit a crime and then you can get treatment, which is not the way to do it. So we actually have to fund the diversion programs and basic community services that, by the way, are keeping most people from ever getting arrested in the first place, because most people with mental illness and addiction don't get arrested, but when they do, they stay a really long time. And so we have to adequately fund it. I know that makes me really popular because that's the fun thing for everyone to hear is we need more money, but it is the reality. The second part that's really good, not only do we have the diversion programs, we just need to give David more space in them. But this is a science. This isn't anything I made up. I'd love to sit up here and be like, we came up with these programs one day. It's not. This is a science that has been well researched in many states, in many jurisdictions. We have years of history and data and outcomes for our drug court program right here in Oklahoma County that, by the way, is a national leader in drug court outcomes. The program David and the judiciary and Bob Ravitz oversee is a national leader in how well they do. But when they're full, that's a problem for the next person that gets arrested. And so it really does come down to we use the science, not anything we made up, not anything that we think, oh, this might work and would be kind to people. This is a true science of the medical care they need and the requirements we put in place for them to become employed and to go to school that will yield us these outcomes, which, by the way, $5,000 a year per person to be in drug court, minimum $19,000 a year per person to be in prison. And you get to decide as a taxpayer which of those you want to spend your money on.
Very good. Kris, talk a little bit about rehabilitation.
Sure. So what has been said here is exactly right. And I don't want to be repetitive, but I do want to underscore one point. Incarceration, stints in the jail, not only impact the individual, and I'm going to talk about that, but it also disrupts the family. It removes that person from the economy because they're not able to work. They most oftentimes lose their job, and so on and so forth. But there are statistics that indicate that children of incarcerated parents are 7 times more likely to become incarcerated. So in essence, it becomes a generational cycle. And the other dynamic for when we incarcerate, and I want to use this word, warehouse individuals, because there's no money or no funding for programming to actually address these root issues while the person's incarcerated. It's all you can do to keep the lights on and the doors open or locked, whatever the case may be. And so when a person is just warehoused in a very hostile environment for a period of time, when that person does reenter society, the term that's used, and I don't like this term, is that person is institutionalized. And so there is research that would indicate that person is even a greater risk now to public safety than even before they were incarcerated because of that institutional dynamic that takes place and all the obstacles that come with reentering society. But rehabilitation works when we're able to address the root causes of criminogenic behavior. So when we're able to apply proper substance abuse treatment, mental health services, cognitive behavior, helping individuals think in healthy, productive, pro-social ways, job training, making sure that they have a tangible skill that they can actually obtain employment with, and then making sure that they have the basic needs such as transportation and housing to achieve some stability and self-sufficiency, we know that we can make a difference, and we can not only help that individual get back on the right track and as, you know, transform from a tax consumer to a tax producer, but we also help that family become healthier, and as a result, that equates to a healthier community.
Sheriff, we touched on costs and fees and the impact that it has on individuals in the system. Can you talk a little bit, walk us through, you know, from a basic arrest, you know, what the fee and, you know, the cost impact on these people is, and what's that say about where we are, and what should we be looking to do there?
Let me share a case from last week. On November the 26th, there was a 29-year-old female, 6 months pregnant, who was booked into the county jail. She was booked in on a misdemeanor, obtaining money and property by trick or deception, less than $500. Her bond was set at $2,000. She also was booked in on 2 fines and cost warrants. One was for changing lanes unsafely, that went to $391.95. The other was failure to carry her insurance card, and that was $404.95. Now, the fine on both of those traffic offenses was probably less than $100. And the rest of that were fees and costs that were attached to that charge. That's how the court system operates. And that's how also a lot of other agencies operate, is from those fines and cost. One of the things I think we ought to look at doing is making those fees and fines a civil action rather than a criminal action. So collection can occur through the civil process and not through a criminal process, so they don't go to jail. When you get booked into the county jail, you owe a $15 medical copay. You're not charged that medical copay again unless you request additional medical services. So basically, until you get released and after you're convicted, then the jail will bill you for about $45 a day, up to a maximum of $3,000. I can tell you that we collect less than 10% of what is billed. The court, of course, have a lot more fines, and David could probably be better to share the different court costs that are included. But I just looked at this from this one case last week. We had to release this lady on an medical OR bond because she went to the hospital based upon some pregnancy complications. And I can tell you, and I want to say this up front, and I should have said this earlier, that I know there are many bondsmen here in the room, and bondsmen are our friend. They work very well with the jail and with those in getting out those that can post bond. They are hampered, and we are hampered with, like I said earlier, the fact that the court has established this archaic rule about allowing them to post bond, and if they do so, remove the possibility of a public defender.
This is a little bit, this was not in the script at all. It's not scripted, as you can tell, but some general ideas about questions. But I want to ask each of you if you could wave the wand and do one thing. If you could wave the wand and do one thing, what would it be?
So many of you all were involved and instrumental in the fact that Oklahoma for years had neglected our roads, bridges, and highways. They were not safe. They were not helpful for economic development. We had bridges collapse that we lost Oklahomans' lives to. And we all decided that our infrastructure was so important that we were going to fight and demand and support and beg and cajole our legislature into saying, we're going to do a sustained investment in roads and bridges. We've neglected it, and we're so far behind, we're going to do a multi-million-dollar investment for several years till we get caught up, and then we'll just have to increase a little bit to maintain after that. But it's that important. I would submit to you that brain health, providing mental health and substance abuse services to our fellow citizens in our family is just as important as asphalt. So I'm thinking that we ought to invest in our brains the same way we invest in asphalt in our state, for the purpose of economic development, for the purpose of keeping families together, for the purpose of not going broke on a Department of Corrections that we're never going to be able to fund if we don't change this trajectory. So that's what I would do. I would decide that we're all going to work together and say brains matter in Oklahoma just as much as asphalt.
Very good. Chair?
I would say at the booking process, to be able to treat people as people rather than just as charges and charge numbers. To be able to have a judge, to be able to have assessors as people come into the system, to see where we can divert them out of the system before they get booked. Or once they're in the system, divert them away from the system before they go to a prison. I think treating an individual as an individual rather than a warrant number or a case number.
Great.
I think for me, if I could wave a magic wand, and it would be to change the paradigm. For 12 years, I had the privilege of serving in the legislature, and every discussion, decision, debate that I ever participated in relation to corrections policy or corrections spending was primarily based on emotion, anecdotes, and fear. And if I could wave a magic wand, I would like to change that dynamic and have our policymakers make their decisions in relation to this issue based on research, data, and facts.
Excellent. Excellent. David?
Thank you, Clay. They, my astute three prior panelists just stole all my answers. So I'll give you mine. It is that we will make our theology our biography, and I stole that from Richard Turpin. Live our faith. Treat people the way we say we should treat people, and truly do it. When you walk out of the door of your church, don't turn into a different person. Okay? And I know I'm preaching to the choir here, literally. But if we treated people like Jesus Christ taught us to treat people, we wouldn't be up here talking about this stinking problem.
Thank you. You guys keep your seats. I'll wrap it up, but let's recognize this terrific group of people right now. A few closing thoughts and comments. I think it's just so clear and so obvious that it's in front of us, and this must be done, and the time is now. It's going to cost money, and it is clear that at some point soon, in my mind, it would be sometime before the general election, or maybe it is the general election. It's for the strategists to help us understand, but we will have to have an election. It will perhaps be a county-wide sales tax. It could perhaps be in part ad valorem. It must be in part temporary. I would suggest to fund a new right-sized jail for bad guys, a mental health facility, a treatment facility, perhaps a dormitory-style detention facility. These are just thoughts from me, but there's going to be a capital piece to this. There's also going to be an ongoing programming piece that we must fund these programs. And is there money in the system that we'll figure out how to reform and how to better spend and be more efficient? Yes, and we need to do that work. But we'll need money, and I know that at the moment in the economy we're sensitive, but it's a priority, and it's a priority for us today. I would ask all of you to leave the room and be agents for this, to talk about this, to talk to your family, friends, co-workers, learn more about it, give us information, please engage with us. Again, you'll see much more communications happening. It's going to be a much more top-of-mind issue for the chamber and for the community going forward. And as I told the group my little story the first day we met, I truly believe we must and will be successful. But it's going to take us all. It's going to be a difficult road. There's a lot of issues, but let's keep our eye on the end game. Let's keep our eye on victory, and we'll get there. Let's make it happen. Thank you all very, very much for your engagement today. David has authorized me to adjourn the meeting. We're done.